with glass, it's been a bit of a rocky journey, because you have to be an educator at the same time as an artist when you're working with glass, and because there's a lot of concerns with collectors regarding, it's glass, it's too fragile, but like they also forget glass is actually what they're living with every day. And I'm sure a lot of them have these kind of crystal animals collection that they have. So they forget that it's the collection of glass has been a long-running tradition within previous generations. So it's a good thing to kind of remind people of that. But it's also, I guess, so far I've had a bit of success in the Melbourne scene in Australia. So I find connect with the message behind my work, what I'm trying to explore, as well as the aesthetic beauty.
I actually want to build on something which Morris asked about how she's going to bring to the market, because I think that the conversation thus far, we've looked at it from a very traditional way. So for most artists, galleries have been agents predominantly. But another way of looking at it is, what if you also were to focus corporate? Because corporate public space art, for instance, getting commission, this is another route. And I think that for some of your work, this is probably better, because for a lot of your work, it belongs in an exhibit. It belongs in an exhibit. It doesn't, not all of the pieces would have the same effect in a domestic type of setting. So I think that we can think retail on one hand, but on another, you think commercial. And I'm just thinking these days, if you take, for instance, Eileen Gu,
yes.
all it needs is to create that affinity, that brand image. So I look at your work, it would be appealing for many corporations to have this type of kind of collaboration. And that is the platform which you want, because then, as I said, ultimately, to be very successful, because we are living in a service industry, whether you like it or not, to be commercially successful, you have to fulfill that aspect of it. But it's about finding the right partnerships in order to evolve. And so I think that for your work, especially with your origins of your work, it would be extremely appealing to a very wide corporate
clientele.
Yeah, I think so. So definitely that is an area where I think you could put some thought, and the scale of what you could do. So really benefit from that as well.
I'm just coming back in your process of creating the pieces. Lots of the things that you've said, it's about, you have an idea, you have some concept that you want to create a piece of art from. But what happens if you're approached by a client? For example, Dominic has a project, he comes to you. You say, hey, I'm doing these things, and I like your style, but there's certain, when you're working with another, creative work, like he has to create a work for your building, then how do you approach this sort of a restriction? Because it may be a spatial restriction, maybe there are certain criteria from your already concept. Have you ever done any commission work for private clients?
I have done some commission work with designers, creating a line of objects. Often they come to me with a specific design in mind. So I'm more working as a fabricator, but I'm actually really excited about projects where I can, like the one you were describing, because I feel like these limitations are a chance to be creative, a chance to see, like, all right, I've got this to do this space, and they want this element and that element. How can I take those elements but add my own unique twist to it? And kind of, I guess, like, I'm excited about surprising people in a way. Taking like a restriction and a blank canvas that has already a few lines on it, so it's not really blank, but finding a way to incorporate that and make it more interesting, because I also think restrictions like that would push my work as an artist further, and taking me like out of my comfort zone, and seeing like if I can take it to new heights, which I feel like I'm always about growth and figuring out how I can grow and develop my practice further. Sometimes I will start with a bit of skepticism, but usually by the time I'm finished, I'm generally pretty pleased how I've like grown in this area of taking the direction I've taken it.
What is the difference today between an artist and a designer? Because it's, they used to say that it's very difficult to make it as an artist in your own time.
True,
right?
True.
But now, the way that we are evolving, these are all things which we are redefining. So you have a lot of crossover today.
Yes.
Yeah, and so artists involved in commercial design, bringing to the mass market. So I think that our perception of artists as being something very bespoke, something very personal, but it's being consumed by a very narrow segment of the market. But actually it should be very different.
Yes.
Because now my perception of being an architect is very different than what it used to be. It used to be design is so personal. But actually I realized that I work in a service industry. And so it should not be personal. It should be about a greater consumption. So the sensibility is different. And the interesting thing for me is that how do you strike that balance between an artist and becoming somebody who is successful in being able to provide later on, I'm assuming that perhaps you may not have your own family or dependents right now, but when you do, you have to think about other things. And so the lifestyle and everything like that becomes a major factor in everybody's work. So passion and work hopefully will be able to run in parallel as you kind of develop your career. So I think that now I think it's about how you bring exposure of your work to the mass market and what it means for you to develop your reputation, and ultimately the rewards that you would gain, from that, because it's about an overall package. It's about having the innate skill sets, but as you journey through life's road, you also think that your other skill and knowledge is about how to bring things together and make things work and bring it to the people. Yeah, it's very much broader.
Well, I think like it's already something that I've started to consider. So I think as Dominique was saying, that increasingly these crossovers between artists and designer are becoming like, it's not as well defined as it used to be, and I think that's a good thing. But I guess my idea for when I'm making my art for art's sake only, as something that's personal, I think that is some of where my best art can be, where it's something that I'm never completely sure it's going to be, 100% successful, but it's always something experimental and something that pushes further. From like, I think if I were going into the designer point of view, I would be taking what I'd learnt as an artist, those aspects I know are successful and I know work well, and be working it into a design that is solid, not as experimental, not as adventurous, but would work well for certain tastes and a certain market, if that makes any sense. So I think one is a more tailored experience, and one is a personal experience about freedom and just figuring out what other, experimenting with what other like mediums and techniques would work or would not work, because you don't know until like you've given it a go. And as a designer, it would be consolidating that experience and making it work for the general public or for a certain market.